move, this over, if you want to do that, Baba, it's okay. And she was kind of like presenting a thought. And he said, um, I will not do anything anybody tells me to do. It has been my ages old habit. I always do what is best for you all. I will never listen to any suggestions. Whatever is best for you all, I do it because I know. And people were kind of giggling as he was saying that, but it was like they laughed at the part where he said, I will never listen to any suggestions. The crowd kind of was like, what? Like, because he was kind of, in a way, slamming Elizabeth. Like, don't tell me. He was just like, everything that's happening is perfect. It's all right. I'm here. Everything's fine. I just love that. And then the conversation went on to something else. Jay Bob.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
How's everybody doing tonight? Quiet night?
Yeah, well, there are a few songs and some readings, a little bit sharing here and there.
Nice.
I happen to think there are a couple of things that Baba gave about his silence, since we're coming up to that, and you might find it interesting. And this is going to be paraphrasing because I heard Erich relate this a number of times. But apparently, Erich got in a was yelling at one of the servant boys who was somehow not doing doing something in the proper way. And then later, the Baba and the Mandali were in Mandali home, and Baba said, "Why did two people shout at each other?" Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. Why did two people shout at each other in spite of being right next to each other? And all the Mandali gave various answers. I got to get the point through the guy's head or whatever. But eventually, Baba said, because their hearts are far away and they have to shout across that distance. But Baba said when two people love each other, and their voices get quieter and quieter until they begin to whisper, and as they grow closer, they just look from the eyes, just they communicate. And then Baba said, I observe silence because I am nearer to you than your own breath. So that was one explanation Baba gave of his, why is there to, I am so close, why are words even necessary? As two people in love, they just gaze at each other. And the other one was that Erich used to describe this. Baba asked the Mandali, the men, uh, people talk all day. I'm paraphrasing this as I remember it over the years. Uh, People talk all day. Where do the words go? I mean, whole cities are speaking. Where do all the words go? And Mandali came up with various answers because he would, ask them to come up with an idea. In the end, Baba said, they collect like clouds. And I'm paraphrasing. They collect like clouds and they hang over whole cities. All these words they create. You might even say kind of a pollution that hang over whole cities. And my silence is to absorb that noise so that you can hear the voice of your own soul. Did that make it so funny to talk on Zoom because I don't even know whether you folks are hearing, but
No, but that's so beautiful, Jeff. I mean, I
yeah,
never heard this. Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
what a beautiful thing that I mean, Bob is like not a spiritual exercise. He is absorbing all this noise in the world so that we can hear the voice of our own soul. And when Baba saw Upasni Maharaj for the last time, I think it was in 1944,
41 maybe? 41, I think.
41, outside of Sikori, and Upasni just begged Baba, even with tears in his eyes, for Baba to discontinue his silence, break his silence. And he probably knew how crushing this work was of Baba's by observing silence, just being crushed by all of the noise, all the words, all the yelling, the screaming, all on him, absorbing that. So we can at least probably think straight a little bit now and then.
Do you recall, Jeff? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's funny. Last year was the first time I actually did a full silence day, and I honestly, the word that I would use is like crushing. Like it felt very intense for me, and it was not any bit enjoyable in the least. It was very, very painful for me. Actually, it was like I felt my skin kind of crawl. I just like I don't know. I almost couldn't stand it. And then, but Adrian was. I can't speak for what she experienced, but from what she told me is that it's one of her favorite days of the year. So I'm not sure this year if I'm going to do that or not.
Yeah.
To share
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Prakash.
share something light now that we're talking about silence. Shailaja came to my work on 9th of July or something like that. And then I was asking my boss about taking the day off because I would like to maintain silence. And I said that to my boss, and then Sally was next to me. And then he looks at Sally and says, "Hey, that must be the best day of your life."
Oh my goodness. I think, Alan, I think that when years ago I would get very frustrated with Silence Day, especially when our studio was very busy, and he wanted to keep silence, but he wanted us to keep working that day, and I had customers calling, and it was very
You had to take turns.
No, but you wouldn't speak. But now it's fine. It just is like, I think it becomes a real sweetness, and that especially the next day, the idea of what am I saying? Why am I saying it? What words am I using? What do I really need to say? And what do I really, that kind of thing. So I hope you have a really nice Friday, no matter what you choose to do.
Sometimes when you in the early days of observing silence, thoughts would be much more a harassment, but and so you're dealing with that. But eventually, as you observe silences over the years, the mind is not as bothersome, at least for me, as it was in the beginning.
I have to walk the dog.
Yeah.
You can stay. You can hang out. I got to walk the dog. You can stay. Come on, Charlie. I don't know.
Yeah, my first meeting with Baba was on Silence Day. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I knew sign language because my employee was deaf, and so I was speaking in sign language to all these people that were in the Baba meeting and not saying anything, and they were all looking at me like, "What the heck is he doing?" And I thought that they were speaking in sign language, but nobody knew how to speak sign language. They just knew how to write. So it turned out to be a writing fest. It was very interesting. I have to admit.
Sometimes when you're observing silence, like in town and everything, they also think that you can't, that they have to, you write something down and then they write something like you can't hear also.
Yeah, yeah, that happened in the restaurant before going to the meeting.
Yeah.
I was writing down what I wanted and trying to communicate with the waitress, and
Yeah.
she was writing down. It was so comical, you know.
Or they whisper. They whisper. They could go very low.
Yeah.
You know, Pops, that one song that uh, that you were trying to find, that sung by Monty or sung by Katie, written by their father, Pops. That was Pops was Dr. Goer and Katie's father, and on Silence Day, he would do it. He'd talk out the side of his mouth like this. And so brought people apart, like, what? Show me how you observe silence. And then you know, thing. But Bob got a great kick out of it, you know. He kind of somehow talking out the side of his mouth was like, you know, wasn't breaking silence. Yeah, that was Pop.
Lots of funny stories like that, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this works well in this group because you guys all speak English, but there was this story which my cousin shares. You know Gopi, I think. You know the guy who sings Baba Ho with Ward Parks.
Yeah.
So he happened to be there at in the D hostel. I mean, on the Silence Day, and it was lunchtime. They all gathered for lunch and all that stuff. And food is very important for Telugu people, you know. People from Andhra, I mean, it's important. I mean, everything should be there. So they're all lined up. They're all lined up, and everybody is, you know, had their plate, and the guy is serving and all that stuff. And there's this guy who wanted a little more than what he got. so he would go. I mean. He's asking for more dal, right? I mean, in Telugu, we call it papu. I mean, papu is what we say in Telugu. So he would say, I don't know. And then finally, he couldn't just hold it any longer. He says, papu, give me more of that. And lots of ways you can break. The reverie can be broken very easily, you know, I mean, the silence and all that stuff, we can just lose it in a moment. And it happened to me all the time. I mean, I never had a perfect silence day so far, I should admit.
One of the dangers is like you're reading a book, and in the book, nobody's observing silence. And then you look up and say, hi, how you doing, you know? Or you talk to your dog, you know? I mean, around people, you kind of get the message they're observing silence, but animals aren't, and people have, they've broken their silence in so many hilarious ways.
What?
It sounds like Michelle.
No, she's not.
Oh.
She's walking the dog. Yeah.
Jeff, do you remember something that Baba said about the sounds of various, all these bombs that exploded during Second World War? And he said, where will the sounds go? That's what Baba said. They sort of, like you said, they stay there and then will hit us back in a different way. I mean, they appear as natural calamities or something. Is that what Baba said?
I don't know.
I vaguely recall. That's why I thought.
I know Baba. I mean, Baba did say that nature would rebel in the form of national disasters and the like. I mean, our exploitation of the earth is creating repercussions.
Mm.
You know, rather than honoring the earth, we are it belongs to us, and we can extract whatever we want. Sometimes someone will bulldoze a whole nice lot that's, you know, a little wooded area. I'm almost inclined to say, did you ask Jesus if that was all right, what you're doing? I mean, it's like, you know, hey, so
Actually, Jeff, I have a question. I mean, it's for everybody. I mean, we all
yeah,
can talk about it. Intuition, is that on the rise in these times currently? What we are going through, and we are staying at home and thinking at least a little more about God, not necessarily us, but everybody in the world. So, is the proportion of intuition, has it gone up in these months?
yeah, you're wondering if people's intuition is deepening,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
access to it.
Oh, there it is. Wow,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there.
Thanks, Alan.
I'm surprised you picked that one. I just all about intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you, I mean, just to say that Baba said that intuition is always 100% correct, but the is accessing it, and and also, well, you guys talk. I mean, I got some, the way I've worked with intuition over the years, but what are your thoughts about intuition?
Alan, you have the book.
Well, well, this is written by, this is like 15 essays by Don Stevens and companions. And I haven't read it all the way through, but I think the way that Don, I think because he works so closely with the discourses and God Speaks and other, you know, Listen Humanity, stuff like that, it's like his writing is really, he's almost speaking from that place and connecting his intelligence with that sort of intuition. So some things I can connect with. He goes into a lot of like the internal links thing.
Hmm.
The internal links is like a important thing of like, you know, I think that's why he would have a lot of group meetings where he would have people sort of, sorry, hold on a second, this thing keeps going off.
Jeremy, what's your thoughts about intuition?
That is, I really don't know. I was hoping not to be called on in this class. No, I'm, um,
Well, that was an intuition, right?
yeah.
That you might be called on.
Yeah. I find
That's it.
I find that intuition comes in waves for me.
Hmm.
That the closer I feel to Baba, the more it surfaces.
Hmm.
I think because we allow that connection to bear fruit. Otherwise, it would be you know just an experience that you have with yourself. It's when you connect with Baba, at least for me, on a very deep sense, intuition seems to follow.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No. What? Here's one way over the years, Baba kind of, uh, and I don't know, I would say conveyed to me that the way you can check, refine your intuition and separate it from the deliverances of the mind or the intellect. Um, for example, suppose suppose I'm going to go to a gathering this evening, and I think, oh, that's going to be so boring. I'm not going to enjoy it. And I go there and I connect with somebody, and I have a, really a live, an animated time. So what I would do over the years, I say, mind, you said that this was going to be a boring this was going to be a boring experience, and yet it turned out to be quite rewarding and alive. So I'm not going to, listen to you. You know, now suppose I go to, I think somebody, that person is, I'm feeling that person is dishonest. I'm picking up that they're dishonest. And then I find that that person actually was dishonest. So then I'm saying, wow, I got a true intuition there. I don't mean that to condemn them for it. I'm just working on sharpening my intuition. What is a projection? What am I projecting, and what am I seeing? What's happening? In other words, if, uh, life can help you determine whether your intuition is, whether what you conclusion you came is an intuition or just a projection.
Hmm.
So you think, oh, let me give you an example. I mean, I do it all the time. If I think, um, boy, I'm just not thinking too well here. Um, I, if I say I feel that somebody is, well, say suppose I think somebody is dishonest, and I kind of sense that they're dishonest, and I discover that they're honest. So I hold myself accountable for making that mistake. In other words, you're trying to separate the relying upon the mind as opposed to intuition. And so you throughout the day you can sharpen your intuition and separate it out from projections. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could.
I had a very unusual thing happen to me. We were in the studio, and all of a sudden I had this indication that something was terribly wrong, and I blurted out, "Michelle, call an ambulance." And uh, a second later, there was a bicyclist that got hit by a car in front of the house.
Wow. Yeah.
And I have no idea how I put those two things together.
Yeah.
Because I was not thinking of anybody, you know. But I feel that was a time that I just come back from India, and I was extremely sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel that that's a form of intuition. I don't know
Yeah.
quite.
Definitely. Intuition knows, and you can know. It doesn't. It's not an empirical way of coming at things.
Right.
But I find anytime, you know, I don't normally get fooled because I've been through this for so many years. I mean, to see uh, picking up where people are coming from. But it took a lot of weeding out my projections, and so that so I can separate. Uh,
Well, Jeff, how do you separate, like, if you have a very strong happening in your life, like, for example, like depression that's ongoing or chronic, or some sort of mental disturbance that you've had, or things where are chronic, but you sort of have glimpses of your intuition, but at the same time you're struggling with this other thing that's your personality and your ego, but it's still affecting your
Hmm.
progress in, you know accessing your intuition. You know what I mean?
You mean the depression is getting in the way of accessing your intuition?
Yeah, like for me, example, like I have sometimes, like even today, I just felt like I just sort of get these like that feeling of like when I asked you the other day, like don't you ever just feel real tired of being a human and being and coming here and doing this again and again and doing this whole thing? I mean, really, just on a really deep level, I feel very tired in some way, and I don't know if that's my personality. I don't know if that's my soul or what it is. I can't. It's too complicated. But
I
when I
think
start to think or feel that, then
we're all overloaded right now. All of us.
yeah, it gets to the point where I can't even. The
Yeah.
intuition is like, where is that? It's like,
Well, the more you got going on upstairs, so to speak, up in your head, the more difficulty it'll be to access intuition,
right.
and moods and depression. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll give you an example. Like a buddy of mine was getting married, and I knew that it wouldn't last. I just knew.
Ooh.
And I couldn't, I couldn't tell him that because then I would have alienated both of them because they were going to get married anyway. I knew they were going to get married, but I knew it wouldn't last. And so it proved that. So that means that what I was picking up, not that it was anything wrong with it, but it's just a certain kind of knowing.
Mhm.
And, you know, so how did I know that? The intuition can see these things. But I have found it very fascinating over the years to just to keep. I mean, if I misread something, I take it very seriously. I don't beat myself up about it, but I say, "Ooh, you thought, you thought that." One time I went to India with somebody, and they were convinced that they were going to die by going to India. Now I'm in a position where I'm encouraging them to go, but now do I want them to go? Because they are convinced that they're going to die by going to India. And so I had to I had to go out on a limb because I didn't think they were going to die. And so I did convince them, to go to India. That we had the tickets and everything, and they didn't die. But this person was convinced they were going to die. So they were projecting, their mind was projecting this scenario. And see, normally, if I did something like that, said, Jeff, you thought you were going to die by going to India. We better look at this thing. I mean, I take it seriously. Wow, that was a huge illusion. I mean, a delusion that I had bought into. So it's freeing up the intuition from the deliverances of the mind, and so that your intuition can guide you more on what to do. And then life is, you don't have to think so much. You're moving through intuitively through situations. But anyway,
Yeah. Start small.
yeah. Oh yeah, these
Little.
little things. I don't think my car is going to start this morning. It's a cold, freezing morning, and you go out there and it starts up. So what was that? That's a big mistake. I take that as a big mistake, you know. But if I thought it was not going to start, and it did start. It seems like a small thing, but it's the mind. The intuition knows that the car is going to start. It knows, you know. So
Yeah.
or say someone comes on the center, and I can tell even though they're an intruder, I can see that they're not going to be actually a problem. They don't have any ill motive. And then you see whether that proves to be true. And so that way you can continually check up by what unfolds. Anyway, that's my kind of rap.
Yeah.
Jeremy, do you find I'm here? Well, Alan,
My computer
yeah.
died. My computer died in the middle of you talking. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to, I said what I was going to say.
Well, it was perfect.
He intuitively knows it was perfect. He doesn't even know what you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, take intuition. What's your, I mean, can you give me an example of how you've seen that operate in your life?
We were playing Monopoly yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, Aaron's playing the stock market, and
You
I'm
mean
thinking,
life?
life, oh, life, oh, life. And then there's the gambling part. And I'm thinking, Aaron, put the numbers on 7 and 3. And that's what he did. I didn't say it, but he heard me. So I'm just teasing. I'm sorry. But it's true. That did happen.
Mhm.
It's when you think of somebody and they call the next
Yeah.
day. They call
That's right.
10 minutes
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Or you call somebody and they say, I was just thinking about you. It's like, did I call that person because I inwardly felt compelled to because they were thinking of me?
Yeah.
That happens all the time, Michelle,
Yeah.
all the time. And I tell you, I mean, that reminds me of a message Baba gave. I don't know if I'm putting it right the way Baba said, but then Baba mentioned that we communicate on all levels of consciousness, mental, subtle, and gross. So any thought is instantly going to that person. That's where suddenly the sayings of Zoroaster become so important: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And so how we think can immediately impact what are you thinking about. I mean, so I think this idea of somebody just saying that, oh, I was just thinking of calling you, and you call them, and it happens, I guess, probably through communication at the mental level, at thought level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like a radar, you pick up. There was one guy here who was staying in the nearby community, a Baba person, and I picked up that he had violence in him. And I was kind of concerned. I thought of going and telling Kitty that there's something in this guy, that there's some violence in him I'm picking up. Not that he did anything externally that would indicate it. But I thought, God, I can't do this. I don't even like to talk to, I don't even like to squeal on anybody or, talk behind their back. But so I didn't. And then 2 weeks later, he committed suicide.
Oh,
You know.
oh.
So I picked up, it was there. But I didn't follow up on it because I just thought I'd be intruding in his life and all of that.
And how did that change how you approach things, your intuition, to this day?
No, I mean,
That was a while ago because Kitty is no longer with us since, which was it 92 that she passed?
you're talking about what, Kitty?
Yeah.
No, but how?
Yeah,
Okay, so
Kitty.
you said that happened when Kitty was still alive, and you were going to go
Yeah.
say something to her. So, how did that change? Did that experience change you on how you would approach your intuitive?
Well, I mean, I take it. I mean, I kind of weigh what I can do with what I'm seeing. I don't- I would I was less. What can I say? Less
secure in your
the power
ideas, in
of,
what your intuition was,
what's that?
less secure in knowing the truth behind your intuition.
No, I mean, I've always felt that intuition is our knowing. I mean, that's the thing to appeal. A lot of people, I mean, we're trained to to check in with our intellect, and that's the authority, the intellect. So this is this is changing who's who the authority is.
Yeah, and it can be vastly improved.
Come here,
You have to work.
Oh,
come here,
definitely. Yeah.
come here.
I think ideally, eventually, nothing really surprises you.
Say hi.
Nothing really
Nope.
surprises you because you see
You swallow
what
it.
someone is capable of. You see what could come out of the situation. So it's not surprising what someone will do. And actually, I find I'm less critical. If I know that somebody has a particular trait and they're very likely to express it at some point, I'm not critical of it because that's in their makeup, and they will do that. And maybe I can, avoid being a target or getting out of the way. But you see it's in somebody. It's not like they had a willpower. They could do it or not do it. It was in there and it's bound to happen. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. Well, it's part of your personality. People are. It's how. It's who they are as people. There's things about how we behave or how we act or react. Maybe that's the word. That it's really difficult to change those patterns that are innately within
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, I think there's
Uh,
parts of like, feeling where you guys were talking about, you know, you have this experience of something urgent around you that kind of pops up, or, like for example, my mom's heart stopped one time and I was on the freeway and I immediately drove off the freeway in the middle of the lanes. I cut across all these different cars were honking at me and I went into the dirt and I was like turned around on the freeway, basically totally illegal, but she had literally, like, her heart had stopped for about 5 seconds, or I don't know how long, but it was, she had taken too much of her medication because she had a surgery. So it was an opiate that she was taking for the pain relief. And I guess she was taking them on her own and no one was around her. So she took too much and it stopped her breathing. And my aunt found her. And at that time, so by the time that they got to the hospital, her heart had stopped, and I confirmed later that was the exact moment that I sort of had this whole experience of like my whole world was just like electrified. So I think of moments like that, and I also think about, well, how does intuition show up on a daily basis, like in a moment to moment kind of way. It's almost like everything we've been talking about, in these groups lately, which is like connecting with Baba or looking at his photo. I'm starting to realize like things like that, like connecting mentally with Baba is sort of like how I get, connect with my intuition. I guess it's just like he is, if I could really let go of my day and actually do that actively, it's sort of like just getting in tune with the intuition in a sense for myself. It's then becomes like, it's not so esoteric or something, like where I'm like, was that like something that I should have done? Was that my intuition or was that my thoughts? I don't have, instead of it being like that, I'm just like, Babo, like just directly kind of actively giving that to him. And then the next action becomes, it just becomes, and I'm not even thinking about it. It's just an action is taken, and it's sometimes not even what I would intellectually choose.
Yeah.
well, I think it's really taking it from here into your heart
Yeah.
and going really diving deep and listening within your heart rather through your intellect. I think that's,
Yeah.
for me,
And then what's the difference between your heart and your emotions? How do people differentiate between like, well, I feel really strongly, and then your heart, you know what I mean? Like your so that wisdom part versus your emotions.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
think
think,
it's also the difference between the masculine and the feminine. Sorry, I interrupted you, Jeff.
yeah. No, the intuition is behind the emotions, behind the feelings. It operates kind of from the soul level, and it's not a product of emotional movement. It, yeah, it comes from the other dimension into this. So it really doesn't have to do with, I mean, with the emotions. The emotions could, what the emotions could do is distort an intuition and make it almost inaccessible. But it's not like emotions lead to an intuition. That's just on a different track,
Right. Yeah.
the way I feel.
Well, emotion is what you think you want, and I feel like emotion is more ego.
Yeah.
And I think we actually know in our depths what really Baba wants us to do. I know when I'm doing the little, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. That story that you said that Baba knows. Baba's like very clear.
I mean, to me, the one of the things that Baba said to me back in the 60s, when I've described this before, when I was in a great mental turmoil and, you know, agonizing over the future and nostalgic about the past and all that, Baba said, in every moment, there's something loving that can be done. So
Wow.
that's kind of clear, you know, what would love do now? And I can tell if I don't, if something else wants to get done instead of love. I mean, I can see what is the loving thing to do here, and it has nothing to do with what I want. I mean, no, it could line up with what I want, but it also could be at variance with what I want. I would like to, you know, I'd like to go to bed right now, and no, you know, and Alan has got 3 hours on us. You know, he's like early in his evening.
Go to bed. Bed, honey. It's time for bed. Come on. Oh, come on, Jeffy. It's time for bed. Come on.
No,
You know
Mom.
you're very sleepy.
You know what Erich used to say? He used to say, if I had my way, I would like to be just in my room, just with Baba, enjoying his silence. But I know that he wants me to be here in Mandalay Hall sharing these stories. So that's why I'm here. That's what he would say that. He would just say that quite frankly and openly. I would, if I had my choice, I'd be in my room, not answering all these questions, telling these stories.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to work on my intuition and try to get these stories pumped into my brain from you. then I won't have to keep you up.
No, I'm good.
So, Alan, I suggested to Angela that we have a meeting about dreams of Meher Baba that we've had, and she said that you'd really like that.
Oh, dreams?
Yeah, dreams of Meher Baba, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Love you, Jeff.
Yeah, Adrian. Hey, we're talking about intuition, Adrian. We need your help. And Babs, have you got anything to chime in with?
Need your help.
We're talking about intuition.
I have to intuitively go do work that I don't feel like
Oh,
doing.
you-
My intuition is telling me to
Yeah.
do that. My brain is telling me to just stop and like quit everything and just live in a bubble of my own anxiety.
Sit in a room alone with Baba's silence.
My intuitions tell me you should stay there, right there. No,
Whose intuition's right? I don't know.
no. But intuition. I mean, intuition is really well worth developing, and it simplifies things immensely, and it stops a lot of that ticker taping thinking.
So true.
Yeah,
I
Jeremy.
will say, I will say that
Yeah, go ahead.
Silence Day historically has been a day where I feel like I'm able to like build up that muscle a little bit, and it kind of gets stored, and then I that intuition just, it's just such a sacred time of like listening to Baba, and that builds my intuition.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
But
No.
anyway, that's all I have to say about intuition.
Okay.
You
Well,
love him.
well,
Woo! And I was gone.
yeah.
It's literally slowing down of thought process, I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just slow down in your mind. I mean, we all have different ways of doing that. And then I guess whatever that pipes in from inside is perhaps intuition. And
It helps when
yeah,
when the mind slows down and you don't have you're not besieged by so many thoughts.
yeah.
You can.
I think the clarity of intention, I mean, as long as the intention is clear, I don't know if can intuition be negative?
And sure.
Or can
A question. I mean, can it be such that where we can perhaps not realize that oneness, but go away from that? I mean, can you call something like that an intuition? Is it possible?
I think intuition is always loving and unifying.
Okay.
I mean, although you can sense this is a dangerous part of the town to be in. You can go in there and you know that there's something dangerous. So it's protective too. You can.
Well, I know I had an experience in Baltimore. I was walking to my motel, and I had to walk through a very, very seedy neighborhood.
was that the one where we were on the edge of town?
Yeah, we were on the edge of town. Anyhow, so I walked through, and I didn't have any real problem. I had my street smarts up. But after I left that area and I had to walk through a very desolate, nothing going on area, and there was a black man walking towards me. And I was walking down the middle of the street because I didn't want to be, near the sidewalks. And he was also. And for some reason, I had the intuition that I should say hi to him. And I did. And we actually didn't have a conversation, but, he was very relieved. And I was very relieved that we both, were on the same plane.
Yeah.
And I think that's trying to feel what you're talking about intuition being love.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, like, with a certain person, where is their heart and where is their ego?
Yeah.
It's important, I mean, like I say, I've got a neighbor who's into a particular political figure.
Oh dear.
And,
Yeah.
I just kind of know to stay away from that subject and just work at the simple give and take of love from the heart level and stay off of that. And, you kind of sense that subject of politics is not going to bring us closer.
Ouch.
I don't feel like I got to stand up for my political view. I'm standing up. Intuition's telling me that love is going to be over here at a heart level, and it's not going to be up at an ideological level. If I want to lose this person as a friend, as a neighbor, as a warm neighbor, I don't go up to that level, the ideological level, and stay on the everyday feeling, sharing level.
Yes.
I guess that's why Baba has no politics going on, no political talk at the center.
Well, that sounds good on paper, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
No, you're right. People are pretty good about it. Yeah. What about Jeremy? You got any intuitions that you can, or any of that operating that comes to mind?
I think what one thought I had hearing you all talk about it was that I think part of intuition is just letting go of like resisting in any situation. Like even with what you were saying with Erich, that he would rather just sit in his room and, you know, spend time with Baba. But it's like letting go of resistance and also just responding to how things actually are versus how you would like them to be. And I feel like I see it a lot in my job actually. Like I have to work with the public quite a lot, but I also have to do a lot of my own work. And those two forms of work often feel like they're at odds with one another, or like that it's a kind of a zero sum game where if I just only, try to do things for the people that are passing by where I work and who are always asking me questions, that I'm not going to get any of my own work done. But I've just found that like when I actually just kind of give in to that flow of what's happening around me, that I'm happier, I make other people happier, and it doesn't necessarily reduce my own ability to do what I need to do, So like when someone passes by and says, "Hey, like I have a question about this thing," instead of just sort of grumbling or shooing them off, or like, appearing very like impatient, actually like taking the time to go up to them and talk to them. And oftentimes like new connections have been made that way. And I don't know, it's like there are all these opportunities to, all these little buds that could like turn into flowers, I guess. But like so often my mind is like focused so narrowly on getting a really narrow set of things done and accomplished,
Yeah.
yeah.
And even to be able to see that, I think is your whole intuition is operating. There's the personal love and connection, and then there's the impersonal love of work. I mean, work is often it's impersonal love, and to kind of know when to shift, when you have to drop the one to be responsive to the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I'm not here to talk with people. I'm not here to socialize. I'm here to work. And they block that their intuition would be telling them, the give and take of love is a very valuable thing in life. And it can make your job a lot more enjoyable, like you say. Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
Can I read this short thing
Yeah.
from this book?
Yeah.
From this book, Intuition. Okay, just one second here. So this is by Don Stevens. The first time I had ever heard that the avatar in each of his reincarnations gives humanity an avatar gift was sometime in the 1960s when I was sitting in Mandalay Hall with a small group of, I believe, principally resident Mandalay. Meher Baba commented simply that his avatar gift to humanity in this incarnation was that of intuition. as that of Jesus Christ had been love, Muhammad's had been the principles governing communal life, and then Baba mentioned a third avatar's gift, which I found shortly after I had already forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's Baba's gift to us today is intuition. I mean, he said that. And it is a valuable um, valuable thing to allow to be awakened. I feel it makes life. Well, Alan, you're answering so many complaints. You know,
Yeah,
now I'm sure you kind of can tell whether someone is going to be a problem,
yeah,
whether somebody is, uh, this guy is going to be a massive thing, or I mean, or this guy. I might be able to reason with this person, or this person is innocent enough that they'll they'll kind of believe what I say, or they'll kind of accept. But I'm sure you have to use that.
yeah. It's on a definitely on a daily basis, especially with just when I'm calling somebody about an urgent situation that's happening to them, like a pipe burst in their ceiling, or most people are not happy in that regard of like I'm calling about a repair that needs to happen, plumbing or electrical or no power or something like that. But usually I can tell right a couple seconds before they answer the phone. I can tell. Sometimes I actually, now I think about it, I've kind of been practicing like, somebody's going to pick up the phone, or someone's not going to pick up the phone, thank goodness. Or like I've been kind of practicing with that, but lately it's been, yeah, like when they answer the phone right before they say something, I hear the pause when the phone's picked up when they're answering, and then I can kind of already tell this person is going to approach me, like you said, in a certain way, or if it's going to be, I have to kind of really, really focus on Baba as I'm talking to them, or if it's just like, okay, I can thank you for just talking to me, on a heart level. Um, yeah, yeah. It just depends on the day, on who and sometimes there's people that change over time who initially call screaming and yelling and really rude, and then over by the end of the conversation, if I have to. I just sort of focus. I just kind of put all my energy, all my effort is into my work right now. So, it's not really into my creative life or really much of anything else. That I really kind of putting all of my life force energy into my work right now. So, 9 hours of that, and I just kind of give it all over to Baba. So I'm pretty meticulous about every single person I talk to, every single interaction. I have to focus on Baba. I have to, even if it ends up them just being really rude, eventually it's surprising because they will write an email back like, hey, I'm sorry I spoke to you like that. I appreciate your help, but your business is terrible, or like your company is bad or something. But they'll say, but you're a good employee, but your company sucks. Stuff like that.
Who do you work for, Alan?
I work at a hold on, let me move here. Adrian's on the phone. I work at a real estate company,
Oh, okay. Right.
and
Manages buildings and things.
yeah, property management.
Okay.
So yeah, and I work in the facilities department. So there's a lot of people that are freaking out over repairs that need to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Jay
Hey,
Bob.
Bob, Prakash.
Jai Baba Prakash.
Felt intuitively that you should go to bed.
Yeah, I should too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's no, it's yeah. I mean, like I say, that's one of Baba's gifts, and it can be developed and get sharper and sharper. I mean, Kitty was so intuitive, and Elizabeth was so intuitive. They, they were they could tell. Or in Margaret Krask, I mean, they could actually see. I mean, their intuition was liberated from the emotional projections or the mental projections. They must have cleaned that out so they could just see what was in front of them and not be fooled. You could not fool Margaret Krask. You could do, try to put her on somehow, and she just was too smart. She could see right through it.
Was she pretty blunt of a person?
Uh, I mean, she could be, yeah, she could be a little bit blunt, but not hurtful.
Ah,
You know,
hmm.
meaning that she, although she was rough on her dancers because they said that she had almost X-ray vision. She could see a whole room of dancers and tell
Wow,
when someone was off. You know,
that's incredible.
she was like she could see through, so to speak, and see that someone is doing the exercise in a way that if they keep doing it that way, they're going to get injuries later on in their life. She was
Whoa.
very, very,
Mm.
I can say, very critical of doing the movement right so that you could get some longevity out of your body.
Wow.
But I did just thinking of Margaret. I remember one time there's a woman came, new young woman came over to see Kitty, and Margaret would sometimes sit on the veranda there, and and she would just sit off to the corner, and sometimes the people would have to wait for Kitty because she was seeing someone else. So this woman comes up and says, and Margaret says this kind of way, Margaret, who are you? Oh, I'm so and so. I'm just new to Baba. Good. You still have time to escape. That's the kind of thing she would say. Good, dearie. You still have time to escape.
Why escape? It's
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, seeing the videos of her she was sort of stealing the crowd with Kitty, and I forgot who else it was on the stage, but she was like very powerful presence.
yeah.
Frivolous free. Yeah. Three. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Delia.
Delia. Yeah.
Leon. Yeah.
Yeah, she was pretty fierce sounding. She was like, people would say something and she was very quick witted.
Yeah. There was I mean, I may have shared this with you, but some of us used to, when she was in her 90s and she was living at a Happy House, which was one of the cabins on the center, and uh, there would be some guys that would be with her in the evening, and then the women would come from the night shift, one from 6 to 10, I think. And one day, I don't know if you know David Silverman. You guys know David Silverman. And he's kind of he's a computer nut and a little bit nerdy and, kind of, and,
Brilliant pianist.
and he's sitting there with Margaret. She's 96 and he's about 45. And he says, Margaret, I've always wanted to find someone to share my life with. I wanted, you know, uh, a soulmate, someone I could really, li- share a companionship with and everything. But it's never happened. I haven't been, nothing has never worked out. Then he looks over at Margaret and says, Margaret, if if you were younger, I would have asked for your hand. Margaret leans back and says, I'm sorry, David, but I had in mind a much younger man. She's 96 and he's 45. Sorry, but I had in mind a much younger man.
Oh man.
She kept the women monthly. She was very funny.
Uh,
Jeff, you know who has really funny or does a great impression of Margaret is Tim Collins.
Oh, uh-huh.
Have you heard him
Oh, no,
like
I haven't.
impersonate her?
No.
You should
Oh,
ask him.
that's,
It's very funny.
yeah, there's one of the English actresses. What's her name? Maggie Smith.
Yeah.
Very much like the same kind of delivery of Margaret.
Yeah.
Margaret was British.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, she was British. She was um, before she met Baba. She, I mean, shortly before, she didn't know about Baba at all, but her mother and father died. Her fiance died. Her dance uh, teacher died. She was a ballerina, and the head of the company died. 5 people in her life died, all within a short time.
Wow.
So she was very devastated. And, but at the same time, she's British and she's kind of strong and
Mhm.
everything. But then some kind of flaky woman saw her on a train and said, "Oh, what you need to do is you go out. There's a retreat. Go out there. You can meditate and that which it was East Chalicum that she was talking about, where Baba was going to be. So she went out there, and without knowing anything, just a way to get out of London, and she went there, and I don't know if it was the first trip, but she heard of Mayor Baba. No, then she went into this living room, and on this stone mantle piece, I think was a picture of Baba, and she saw that picture of Baba, made a very deep impression on her. And then, of course, when Baba came, she she knew this is the whole point of her life. And Baba said that she was his link to the West.
Margaret?
Yeah, Baba said, and it's funny because she told me, and she didn't never told her dancers, but she told me several times when she was a little girl. She may have been about 8, and she would go in the summer. Their family would go in the summer north of London on the coast, and one time they were there at the house, and some gypsies came around the back of the house, and they're kind of begging for anything. And so she and her mother came out, just poked their head out the door, the back door. And these gypsies, they recognized, they pointed to this girl and they said, "See that girl? That girl is the one that has the a link with the expected one, you know." and and so there were a few of them that time, and then they came by maybe a week later with a whole lot of the gypsy family there. I mean, a gathering, and again they said she's the one who has the link with the expected one, and she will go around the world telling people about him. That was when she was 8 years old, and then when Baba met her in 31, he said, "You are my link to the West." The same word. And then when Baba sent her back from the ashram and Upper Maribad back to England, Baba told her, "Remember, you're my link to the West."
So, what did her parents hear the gypsies say that? Or she just heard it from the
Yeah,
gypsy?
no, her mother was there. She and her mother were standing there on the back steps.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if her mother would know what that meant, but the gypsies recognized her. I mean, a lot of them had great intuitive capacities, and they were fortune tellers and everything, but many of them were psychic.
So then, what does it mean exactly when Bob says, "You are my link to the West"? What is that even? What does that mean?
Yeah, what that would mean. I mean, I can only guess, but I did feel she was like very grounded, extremely grounded, almost like a what do you call it, a wire in your car, the grounding, or when you have charges, you have to have it grounded.
Hmm.
He was very, 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 very present and very down to earth. And yet you had a feeling that this is an extraordinary soul.
Hmm.
I mean, not just somebody that's in the gross world, somebody who has a great knowing that's on the gross world. Yeah.
Was she one of those people that had that connection with Baba in the sense of like, when we were talking about Darwin or we're talking about Esfandiar, that sense of like Baba was sort of, they didn't really need to see him in the physical form anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, she was, I think she had Baba with her all the time. And I mean, she got the essence of Baba and had him with her. And you see Baba in the '56 movie out in San Francisco, uh, shaking her so affectionately, and then she's with the dancers, and Baba is behind her, and he's, you know, uh, caressing her in front of the camera while it's being shot, and she's kind of trying to, Baba.
I've never seen that.
Oh, yeah, it's the Sufi movies of 1956, and you'll see how
Oh,
how endearing
wow.
he was with her. She was one of his favorites, I would say.
Wow.
And when the dancers said that when Baba and Margaret were together, the repartee between them and the jokes and the wittiness that went on between them was just a pure delight for them to witness. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Are any of those dancers still alive today?
Don is.
Yeah,
Don?
Don Mahler and
Yeah.
Ella Marks, but they're pretty old now.
Where do they reside? Are they still able to speak?
Yeah,
Don lives in New York
we
City.
haven't heard Donald Mahler in ages, but he's up in, he's been in Japan for many years, but I think he's back in New York. Is he, Jeremy?
The last I heard, he was in New York, and he spoke at Baba House just a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think he gets out much. I could be getting this wrong, but yeah, I don't, yeah.
I
And
think,
Ella is Viola's mom, is that right?
yeah,
So she lives in Connecticut, I think.
yeah.
She was a dancer?
Yeah, she did in the early years, but then she got married and went a whole different direction. She didn't remain one of the dancers for long.
Mm.
Yeah,
But she had met Bob and everything.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard much about the dancers or Margaret's side of things. I'll have to research more, watch more of her. Uh,
Yeah, if you ever have a chance to listen to Tex Hightower and his descriptions of being around Baba, he is very funny. He, I
uh,
mean, I mean, he's got a certain kind of sarcasm like Margaret, or a little bit of what we can say, irony and everything, but very, very funny.
has Tex passed as well?
Yeah, yeah, he
Oh,
passed.
Was it last year
I think so. I'm
whoa.
or 2 years ago?
2 years.
terrible about years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
He
I
made
just,
the
Where
blue
is there a
coat
good
without pockets.
What's that?
He sewed the blue coat without pockets, and there's the movie of Baba doing this
When he was in San Francisco,
there's no pockets.
and he makes a joke out of it that there's no pockets.
no pockets.
I'm not
there was one scene I got a kick out of. I mean, although you can get, I'm sure he's on YouTube, videos.
No, you don't feel like you
No,
have
it's
to
okay.
leave. You can stay. I can go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm falling asleep.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'm gonna get going here in a second.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Here's a scene that I thought was very interesting.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah,
Are you gonna?
see, Michelle.
Yeah.
I said we'll
What?
see you. Much love
Oh,
and give Aaron a kick in the.
he's playing D&D with friends
Uh-huh.
online or something. I don't know. Yeah, he needs
Give
a
him
kick
two
in the
kicks.
butt. Yeah.
There are many stories that he tells, but this is one that just popped into my head. He's out in California. There's a dinner or a luncheon for Baba at the Garden of Allah, and all of these chairs have been set up, and I think the Sufis were in charge, and they hadn't kind of they didn't put a place there for Margaret. I mean, they didn't quite put her centrally, but also the dancers didn't have any place. A couple of the dancers didn't have any place to sit, and Baba himself told his Mandali, who were the left or right of them, "You guys stand up," and Tex and I think it was Peter Saul sat on either side of Baba. So now Tex is not intellectual at all. You know what I mean? He just he's just kind of um, God speaks, and even when Baba was giving discourses in the barn, it just he couldn't focus on it. But anyway, so he's sitting next to Baba. Baba's at the table, and he's got his profile of Baba, and Baba's seated there at the end of the table, and there are all these people around. And he gets this idea in his head. He's never had this idea before. It pops into his head. Now, this is God in human form. I mean, I interact with him, and Bob was very playful with the dancers. But now, and he said, I'm going to look at him. This is God in human form. I haven't really thought of it that way. I'm going to look through that lens. So he he determines he's going to look at Baba like that. And Baba turns to him and gives him a withering look. Basically, hey, I like our relationship the way it is. Don't be thinking of me. Don't be thinking of me that way. It was funny. I mean, he never had done that before. He was had such a kind of a friend, a lovely camaraderie with Baba. And that took it to a whole different level, and Baba was not happy with it at all.
I mean, like he could even, what would he see? How could he fathom God anyways?
Yeah, he was just trying to see Baba in the context of being this
Right.
divine being instead of the Baba that they had all related to. And Baba was not happy with that. For him, I mean, other people might see Baba that way, but
Yeah.
he had the camaraderie, the very human relationship with Baba. And Baba was affirming that that's the way to be with me, for you to be with me.
Yeah, I think for him, it
Yeah.
worked. Yeah.
And like I say, but it was, it wasn't, and he never looked at Baba that way, except on that one occasion.
Oh,
Wow.
It was kind of hilarious. But you should get some videos of him if you want to. He's a great ambassador for what it's like to be around Baba.
yeah, it's a real treasure.
I'll have to look that up.
Very funny,
Yeah, I
I
think it's really
have to
valuable
go
to
to
have
bed.
those.
With that?
I have to go to bed.
Yeah. But you had him out there in Chicago, and
Yeah, he came to Chicago, and he
one of the best talkers.
yeah, I gave him a little Baba head that I made. It was really a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's just such a
When I was
delightful human being.
yeah. When I was going to college in New York, and I, I I came back. You know, this is in Manhattan, and everybody's grabbing up all the apartments. And I guess I came a little bit late. I could not find an apartment. I was actually I was sleeping on a sofa in the dorms, you know, having to get up and move whenever the security guards came by. And it went on for a while. Finally, I got this place. Someone had advertised for a roommate. The moment I went into this place, I I called it the state of being happy for no reason. I mean, I was just there was no reason. It was like not based on anything. I could not be unhappy. And you know, my situation wasn't good or anything, but it was and and then I began to have an inner awakening. This is before Bob. I began having an inner awakening, and I discovered that you know that we were all had this divine destiny. I mean, it all a lot of stuff unfolded. But anyway, 15 years later, I was in the original kitchen, uh, and Tex and I were sitting at a table having lunch there in the original kitchen. It used to be we used to eat in the original kitchen, and we compared the dresses. You know, oh, you lived in 81st? Oh, yeah, I lived in, but like, and it turned out that this apartment was this far away from Hightower's apartment. There's just a wall, and I was basically picking up a contact high, getting his all of his whole life with Baba and all of his Baba treasures and his whole life with Baba because he lived there forever. And I was just picked up on Baba's presence that was emanating through the walls.
Wow.
So he was really my contact, you
Wow.
might say, before I even knew of Baba.
What year was that?
67,
67.
fall of 67, yeah.
And he was in contact with Baba when in the 50s?
He
When he
was drawn to Baba, became a Baba lover in 1947.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
47.
Yeah. In the 50s, he danced for him in Myrtle Beach. Yeah.
Was that like 50, 58?
58 and 56.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And met Baba in 52.
Yeah, you should hear his story about he was in
That plane flight.
that plane flight.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow. It's a real nail biter.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the whole story, but there was a lot of interesting, you know,
it's a whole journey that
it's a journey.
really, really absorbing and graphic. He's very graphic.
Yeah.
You know. He described Elizabeth Patterson as Elizabeth Patterson had a kind of a low center of gravity and kind of large, and she had these, you know, very penetrating blue eyes and very slow in movement. And he described her as the Rock of Gibraltar on roller skates. Kind of moving toward you, you know, kind of like this. You know,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
With her laser beam blue eyes. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Rock of Gibraltar on roller skates with razor blue eyes.
Wow.
Yeah. It was funny.
My goodness.
Yeah. What a sweetheart he is.
Yeah.
Anyhow, good night.
Yeah. I'll see you guys.
See ya.
Jeremy, always nice to see you. And Babs, we got Costa Rica here, you know, way down there.
Oh wow.
I don't know who Faz was. There's somebody Faz.
Yeah, Faz. I don't know what Faz is.
Faz. Marge, I don't know if Marge is there, but I can.
Bless
And Angela's just see you. Great to see you. Yeah,
you guys.
yeah,
Sleep well.
yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Silence Day on Friday. Remember that. If you
Mm,
can get it, if you
looking
can do it.
forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have to get my manager to see if he agrees to that. I brought it up and he was like, we'll talk about it. I was like, all right.
But there was one time, I think in '68, Baba said that we could observe fast
Oh,
as an alternative to silence. But the very last time in '69, it was, or was it '69? I can't remember. Um, it was to actually observe silence. He didn't give the option. Uh,
yeah. The last time.
it's very, very hard, and I mean, and nowadays you're to hold on to your job is critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Be
Yeah.
kind of practical too.
Yeah.
But
Well, we'll see.
but I bet if you were observed, if you fasted, I bet that would be a way of. I mean, the silence should remind you of Baba. Well, fasting will remind you of Baba when you're really hungry.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
You could still keep silent like in the morning and evening, like before and after work. I think
yeah,
I've done that a couple times.
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah,
And it just like decenters your work day from the rest of your, it's like
Yeah.
to kind of bookend it at least.
yeah.
Probably would feel nice, I think.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, you have to talk all the time, but I guess sometimes you can kind of avoid situation, but there's no way, Alan, you can observe silence over a telephone.
Unless I wanted to make some pretty upset customers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea, maybe before and then
I'm
after.
observing silence today, Mr. Walker. Please call tomorrow. You play that little tape recording on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. See you, Jeremy.
See
See
you
you,
guys
Alan.
Good
soon.
night.
Have a good time.
Yeah, you too, Jeff. Thanks for talking so much. We
Yeah.
appreciate all your sharing and
Yeah.
and energy, man. That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot
it's
to
funny.
give.
I wish I could describe kind of my approach with intuition over the years because it does really bear fruit.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just predictive. It's being able to see what's there in front of you and
Yeah.
not be and and see. I never mind being getting something wrong, not seeing it because that's then I learn
Yeah.
about how the deceptive uh, deceptions of my mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and so it's all a learning process. But once intuition kind of starts to be more dominant, then I think life becomes kind of fun,
Yeah.
and it helps with loving people if you kind of know if you know that they're that way, then
Yeah.
you don't expect impossible things from them.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you know that that dog isn't going to be able to talk, and you don't have a problem with the fact that the dog can't talk.
Right. You're not gonna get upset like that it's not talking to you
Yeah,
and be like and spin your mind out about it. Like,
yeah,
can't
yeah.
believe
You
again
know,
today the dog's not talking to me again. Like you're like, well, what do you expect?
and you sometimes you can tell by a certain kind of personality, they're not going to put things away after them,
Yeah.
and so you're going to probably be the one putting things away, unless unless intuitively you can figure out a way to encourage them to put things away. you know, I just, but so, yeah.
Yeah, that was helpful when you were talking about to be able to check yourself, if you really are, you thought you had intuition and then it turned out to be something
Yeah.
totally. I think that's really.
Life's it gives you the proof right there. And you can, and like I say, the fact that Baba said, and it is true, that intuition is always correct, always 100% correct. Baba said
Yeah,
100% correct.
yeah.
So we have something on our premises
Right,
that knows, you know,
right.
it's just a matter of accessing it more and more.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fabulous.
yeah. I mean, I mean, I know you got to go to bed, but if
Yeah.
can I ask you this question?
Yeah.
What just when you're nowadays, um, do you sense like yourself living more from that place rather than from, like, maybe, my question is like, when you're not living in that centered place of intuition, can you really tell now where you're like, wow, I can really see my head is spinning today, whereas before you'd wake up and it was more normal for your head to be spinning out and not attached, not connected to your intuition. Do you know what I mean? Like, is it over time, has it changed to where you feel more comfortable living in your intuition at
Yeah.
this point?
Yeah. Eventually, you kind of move around fairly intuitively.
Uh-huh.
You know, your mind doesn't fool you as much.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
And like I say, it's important, just not the big things, the little things too.
Yeah.
Am I going to? Is this something that I should do? What will I? And uh, sometimes you can know. Nope, it's not going to be. And if you override your intuition, because you don't know whether it's just your mind telling you or the intuition telling you, if you override intuition, you feel it.
Yeah.
It just didn't have the right. Eventually, the intellect has a different vibration. The mind has a different vibration from intuition.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
then it becomes easier,
Right.
you know.
To discern, to
Yeah,
discern
yeah.
what you're starting to, because there's the you. I mean, are we talking about like the center? Like there's the you of your. I don't know if it's like, is your soul or is it your ego? But there's this center place, and then there's the choice every moment of like choosing your ego or choosing intuition, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The efforting, the part that has to effort. I don't know what you call that. Like, but that part for me still seems to sort of swing from one to another at different times, and I mean, obviously, over time it may change, but
Yeah, I mean, it's important to get some inner space
ah, yeah,
so that there's some space between your consciousness
uh,
and your whole bundle of sanskaras, which
yes,
your bundle of your impressions, your conditioning. And so intuition comes from behind you, so to speak.
you're right.
Your impressions are in front of you. Good impressions and bad impressions.
Mhm.
But intuition comes from the other dimension.
Yeah,
It's not a conclusion of of thinking.
right, right,
It's not even a. It's not even a a convergence of emotion.
ah,
Comes to a something it wants to do. It's
yeah,
behind all of that.
Right, right.
And but what happens is, it's like, your mind is kind of caught up in the impressions, and it and a conclusion of thought can be as flash, just like an intuition. They can look very much alike. One is an impulse, and the other is the teaching from within.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's well worth. I mean, I don't know if most, a lot of people may not be that interested. It gets down to, I have kind of a nature that I don't mind working on these things,
yeah.
like a jeweler or something or whatever, just taking, years and years trying to separate this from that, you know.
Right.
I that I find fascinating.
Well, when you first started, you must have been quite young.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably before you knew about spirituality, or I mean, I don't know. It seems like
No.
you would have to have that type of mindset in the first place of like searching for a better way, like to be on this earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't. Luckily, I didn't get so much into uh, moral behavior, ethical behavior, these kind of codes of behavior.
Yeah.
I rather kind of feel my way through things rather than apply a principle.
Right. Right. Right.
Uh-oh,
Okay.
I'm getting a phone call.
All
Hey,
right.
yeah, see
Great
you.
talking to you.
Yeah, Jay Baba, much love.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.